this is a very simple microservice. Basically, has only one service and the API gateway. Okay, if you see here, it has an API gateway. Okay, and it has a front end application from where you can access the services, and it has a code service. Okay, yeah, they are providing a Docker Compose file which we'll be using to run this application basically. So if you see here, this code service is a Python application, right? So it is developed using Python. Okay, and you have a front end application, right? So this is again a Node application, Node.js. So you can see here, right? So now a very good example of how two technologies are used in building one application, one complete application, basically, right? So the backend is in Python and the front end is in Node. So we'll see how this look like basically. So this is the front end, and if you see here, it is very simple. Okay, it is actually having one button for getting the code. Okay, and that is like there will be a code service which will return that code. So where is that code service defined? I'll show you that. So this is the code service, and this is a text, like randomly, like every time you fetch a code, so it will return any text, any code from this text file. Implementation is quite simple, and we have this main.python. So if you see here, no, this is the API basically, API slash code. Okay, this is the API which will give you the results. Okay, but we will see actually how this is linked to a API gateway. Okay, and we have this API gateway. Okay, so API gateway will give a status check API, so you can check the status. And there is another API which is like API dot random code. Okay, let me open the other one so that you can see the difference. If you see here, the code service, right? The API is API under slash code, right? But in the API gateway, you can see it is API slash random code. Okay, and you can see it is mapped to API code, right? You're getting the difference, right? See, in the gateway level, there's a mapping from API slash code to API slash random code. When we'll execute, you'll understand. Let me run it. Okay, so they have given how to execute. Even you can do it. This is very simple. Like if you have Docker, then you have to just run, first clone the repository, and then you have to do Docker Compose up. Okay, once you have the Docker Compose up, then you can run this particular application. So I have already cloned it. So I will run this Docker Compose up. Okay, you see here, right? You have no, you have seen, right? This is running in so and so IP, and the gateway is listening to port 3000, right? So that means my application is running now. So if I go to and yeah, it is telling it has one status API also. Yeah, so this is the API 3000, then API slash status to check if your backend is up and running, your gateway is basically up and running. So if I call this, if you can see here, localhost 3000 API status is running. But if I run only this, that means this is not there, that resource is not there. And API status running means our backend is up and running. Let's run the front end. So you can see here localhost 8080, I have a front end running. Okay, whatever he has implemented, right? If you see here, the front end is running for me, right? Now there is nothing. Let's see, I'll inspect it and show the network tab so that it is clear to you. I'll click on this get code. Okay, you can see here API random code. It is actually calling this. If I click one more time, API random code is returned, right? So it is returning random codes for me. Now this API random code, right? So if you see from the front end, right? So in the API gateway, we from the front end actually it was linked to API code, but API gateway is actually redirected that call to API random code, right? So front end has to is implemented with API code, but API gateway is sending that to random codes. So that's why when you send the response, right, actually you are getting the response from the gateway. See, API in client is actually sending the call, right? So client is sending the call, this one only. If you see here, but what API gateway is doing here, right? If you see here, API gateway, as soon as it gets this response, right? So it is actually mapped to API slash random code. So API random code is the actual your implementation basically. And then API random code is returning the response back. But client is not sending a request to API random code. But this is the thing. You can play around with this actually. You can go to network tab. You can send a request. Right, and you can see the response also. See, here you can see the response basically what it is actually returning. Okay, so this is the simplest implementation of API gateway. You can probably try. You can even send this request from your if your application is running, you can send this from the Postman also, and you can get your response back and you can add your validations. Okay, so the mapping actually I wanted to show you how this API gateway mapping happens. There are different API. This is for Node, right? So there are different API gateways available. This one is for .NET thing, and even no, this is open source. Even AWS or GCP has their own API gateways implemented. This is the way it is actually implemented. In a very simple format. You can see how the API gateways are getting called, right? You can just try this. Probably you can also build it without Docker also. I think it is possible. You have to install all the packages one by one, I guess, the npm packages. If you see the Docker compose file, you can see what and all it is actually building, how you will be actually using it, right? So in your maybe product, right? So they might be having some of the other API gateway implemented. So yeah, this is one another one, Netflix Joule API gateway. So this is mainly Java stack. They use this. Uh, you may come across this in your project also. I mean, likely probability is high having this API gateway. So basically, from a testing point of view, you may not need to test the API gateway directly. Okay, because API gateway functionalities are already tested, right? So when you get this kind of API gateway implemented, no one will be writing the code from scratch. So major functionalities you have to test it from your application point of view only. If you see the product, example I have given, right? So your testing should focus on no, the chaining of the APIs, and then getting the response back, and you know uh, do the correct assertions. But suppose they have given you an API which is deployed like this, right? So you should know actually what are the components are involved there. And suppose they have given a code base like this, right? So a microservice, no simple microservice with a API gateway. So you have to build everything together and then test it. You should know actually which endpoint to connect. Basically, if you see in this simple example itself, right, you could see two endpoints, right? One is the client is using, and one is the API gateway is using. So if you are testing from a consumer or the client point of view, you have to call the client thing only, right? Client URL only, and see the response you are getting back or not. And in case your client is not ready, your gateway is ready and your backend is ready, in that case, now what you can do, you can call that API from the gateway. Whatever gateway is exposing, you can call directly, and the mapping you can test in your end-to-end testing when you do the end-to-end testing. Okay, that is the major no difference from a testing point of view, how you will see no how you can see the entire thing. Yeah, so they may give you this API code in GitHub and all, so you have to maybe build it using Docker, or if you have a Kubernetes cluster in your company, so you have to create a maybe a pod for you and run entire thing, entire microservice, and then start your testing. So majority of people struggle actually there only, like how we can install microservice in a pod, and then you know start the basic testing. So no need to no keep that fear. So you have to just ask your developers the code, and then maybe they will give you access to the environment, and you can install your application. And you can see what are the from the code you can see, or you can ask your developers what are the endpoints you need to test, and then you can test it the way you were testing before. I mean, if you have seen so far, right? So we have tested the APIs. We know how to test the APIs independently without thinking much about all these components, right? So now behind the scene what and all components exist basically, right? And the full picture, right? So for example, Spotify, right? So we have done the authorization, authentication, or Dropbox, right? So we have played around with the APIs, but we really don't know what is the architecture they have implemented. Obviously they will be having a API gateway in between, right? So which will actually giving us the response. Maybe they mapped multiple services to one call. The way they have implemented, until and unless we see their code, we'll not know. As a client, we will not know basically, right? So what is happening in their background. So in your implementation, if you want to know that, so you have to ask for more logs to your developers, which you can analyze, or you have to anyway code access you will be getting. So code also you can see. That's why I'm showing both, like how it looks like in a code, as well as how it looks like when you see from the application point of view.